Well, good evening. Welcome to this episode of Prophecy for the Last Hour. I am your host. My name is Elizabeth McGee, and I have meat prepared for the dinner hour. Now, I have to make a disclaimer because this is going to make some people very happy. I have no glasses tonight. I was in such a hurry to get here. I was preparing. I left my glasses home, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to see, but but I will not be taking them on and off, so that could be a good thing. All right. So I have been delving into, again, this is what I feel my main thrust is understanding the keys. Jesus said that, they have stolen the keys. It's very hard to understand and unlock the great depth of understanding and mysteries that are in the Bible that the prophets and the patriarchs and those who wrote the Bible really had an understanding of. This is what they understood when they wrote. And in order to really understand what's going on and to get out of the deception that is soon to come upon and really is upon the face of the whole earth, in my opinion, you need to reclaim these keys. And I have found many of them in Kabbalah. And I have a great YouTube I've done, if you want, on Kabbalah. And there are many strains out there, but there is a totally authentic Jewish mysticism strain, Kabbalah with a K. If you want to go on my YouTube channel, you will find that. I recommend anyone interested in this subject read that, because most of what I talk about quite seriously, I attribute it to someone who is in college, okay? I consider this sort of graduate level understanding, all right? This is what is needed to be understood, especially, this is what the Hebraic scribes and prophets will say, that the Bible is written on many levels, and much of it is written parabolically and allegorically so that a child can understand. But the real meat, the real understanding is couched in terminology that it takes a long time, and a very mature believer who's read a lot and deeply meditated on and knows a lot about the ways of God to really understand it. So when I say meat, I'm really talking meat, okay? Which is very important for today. And all right, so I'm going to give 3 points that are my presuppositions, okay? Because I have presuppositions, okay? In my opinion, they're based on deep research, and I believe that I am speaking as one approved before the Father. I want to give you some quotes, because this is something, I'm going to tie some threads together, so I'm going to throw 3 things out there and then kind of bring it together. But in order to understand what is going on today, as the end of the age, we are at a disadvantage because we have been re-educated, retooled, we have been re-schooled in a worldview that the ancients, or the people who wrote the Bible, and many of the texts that surround it, and many of the cultures that surround it, had very different worldview, okay? So it dawned on me, if I'm going to really rightly divide this thing, I have to get the mindset that they had. I cannot make it up. And this is one of the problems in my mind with Latter-day Gentile Christianity. We're at the point basically where we're just making up a lot of stuff because we are so divorced from our root system, the Hebraic root system, that in my opinion is the one that's been growing authentically. So magic. Now, there's a thing here. I want us to talk about this for a second because it's fascinating time to be involved in all of this research, because some of the stuff that's surfacing that people are really researching deeply is just mind-blowing and astounding. But one thing that people will tell you, that what we see on the surface level, okay, like anything, most things in the Bible test to this. Ezra, many of the prophets say this. The books that we get, our Septuagint, our 66 books, whatever canon you're using basically today, these are works and books that have been approved for all levels, okay? And a child can read them, an adolescent can read them at whatever stage you're at, and you can get great understanding, comfort, wisdom, lifestyle, what Yahweh, what he expects, what is righteous in his eyes, what is not. But there is this whole other level, the mystery level, the deeply encrypted, encoded level, where a lot of stuff is hidden. And I'm like, this is what you really need to make sense of what was going on in the Old Testament. I know I'm rambling, sorry. But magic and technology, in my opinion now, are they're really the same thing. There just depends on where you are on the scale. So to a child, a lot of the stuff that we do probably as adults is like magic to them. Ooh, you get in a plane and you go up in the air and you can see things all and in the clouds and then you come down. I mean, they're like, have no clue how that happens. I mean, that's like just a whole magic. You might as well take a ride on a magic carpet, right? But if you're the engineer who's figured out the laws of nature, and if you know how to do this, it's not rocket science. You can speak the language, you can do the formulas, you understand the math, you got the laws of gravity, you know how to do this, okay? So, and it's not magic to you. It's the way the world works, and you figured it out, and you got a great technology going. We can fly all over the world today. And this is my presupposition that magic, to a large extent, is just people on both sides or whatever, operating in levels that to other people looks like magic, okay? And unfortunately, we live in a multidimensional world. I'm going to go into this, and we're sort of at the bottom of the totem pole here. We are encased dense matter, and there are great physics and ecosystems, and there are things going on that are way beyond anything we can probably really imagine. So how do people either access this? How do these other, and this is my new word, I'm kind of trying to work, I'm thinking of ecosystems, okay, other dimensions that have physics and actually ecosystems in them. How do they function and how far advanced are they than us? And the problem is people who are way out there and have a lot more understanding, the esoterics, people who have a lot of arcane knowledge, and this is unfortunately in our government, there's a lot of things, they'll tell you they're 200 years ahead of us in technology and probably more. Okay, we got little smartphones that do that, and we think that's amazing. Everybody's got their face in this thing. There are people in the know on the planet that have technologies that would look like magic to us in this sphere. This is the thing. So I want to give you some quotes. I'm not making it up. Here's one I found. Any sufficiently, and these are scientists, very reputable, historic and some living scientists, and this is what they say. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That's what I basically just said. Any technology, and that was by an Arthur Clarke. Any technology distinguishable from magic is insufficiently advanced. And what we can say is that magic anticipated modern science and technology. If technology is distinguishable from magic, it is insufficiently, I said that one. That was Gregory Benford, an author in 1997. George Luck, a historian, in 1985. Barry Gem, a biochemist, in 1973. So we have to really get rid of this notion that the ancients, it was all superstition and, that stuff never really happened. Those are just nice little Bible stories. No, these people had amazing technologies that even to us today looks like magic. To them, many people, to them, it was magic, but to those in the know, right? So there always is this group that's called, in the know. So, okay, so let me just cross that one off my list. I did discuss that. But to give you an example of what I'm talking about, I've been listening to a couple of really great rabbis, and I encourage everyone to get into your Hebrew roots and begin to understand your text from their authentic Hebraic worldview and understanding. And most, always, really and truly, we get the Sunday school story. The Israelites come out of Egypt and they're in the desert, and Moses goes up on the mountain and he's gone too long, and the people get a little nervous and they start to pressure Aaron, and lo and behold, they make this golden calf and they start worshiping it. And it's like, okay, but really and truly, why would you, inquiring minds, why would you worship a golden calf? Why would you worship a golden calf? It just makes no sense, really. So, and this is the thing, like Balaam, okay, Balaam in the Bible, major sorcerer, okay, why these things, divinations and sorceries and witchcrafts and all this stuff, these things are manipulations of physics and dimensions by people in the know how to do this, and not always for good. Okay, that's the whole point, for evil. And God forbade his people to engage in those practices, and if they needed help, to go to him. And of course, he is king of technology. I mean, this is the whole point. If you're God, then there's no technology you cannot you have at your disposal. He would take care of the problem. That's the way he wanted it to be. Unfortunately, history has not always gone that way. But what happened was, and this is fascinating, this makes a lot of sense to me. The golden calf. Okay, anyone who has done any reading on alchemy understands that it's all about the gold. Like they're always like trying to get, the philosopher's stone out of gold. And it's kind of coded. I mean, even I know it's completely. They never really tell you what they're doing. It's all coded symbolic arcane language, but it's got to do with gold and silver. There's something with these precious metals, okay? Well, because this is the thing, Moses had them all, or not, Aaron had them all take off their jewelry, their gold, and amass it together. And this has to do with this whole concept now, I'm going to go there and continue to unpack this, of idols and what was going on. And the ability to make, because the artisans, the craftsmen, a lot of times even the shepherds, the Bible is replete with these words that are talking about entities that are using technologies at levels that is doing amazing things, making hybrids, literally, and it looks like magic to a lot of people. Okay, so anyways, this gold thing, what Aaron he didn't make just a golden calf. He made a idol, and the closest thing I can say today is, okay, they can do this. And there are probably out there, artificial intelligence along with a host body. You are making a whole entity, literally, that has the ability to animate, to project, to do, and it's way beyond the capability of any human being. You're making a god, because that's what it said. They said, here are your gods. Okay, this is not some little trinket, 6-foot trinket of gold. The gold is it's a code word for manipulating some of the properties that are out there. But what I'm trying to say is this is way deeper, and the whole story hinges, and there's a lot in the Mishnahs and the Jews have so much information they pass down, and there's a couple different angles on it. But basically, these people are engaging in high level sorcery, and not necessarily Aaron, and not necessarily the Israel, but they came out with a mixed multitude. They came out with some people who kind of joined the bandwagon, who are making something that is supra-human and able to interface and to be and act like a god. And it really does have the ability to speak, to animate, to do. I hope that makes sense. That's what's really going on in the story. And then when Moses comes out and he's like, what are you people doing? Didn't I tell you you don't need to call on the craftsman to make a god for you in manifestation, because I'm up there talking to the real God, Yahweh Elohim, who's given me the skinny. It's just so, I cannot understand how people cannot follow this. Okay, anyways. So you have this concept, because what we're coming into is because Satan is going to have the ability, he's going to be given an opportunity to deceive the whole world with lying signs and wonders, or bells and whistles, or which is really technology that is going to blow the socks off of, everybody out on the street. And unless you understand the deep level, and unless you can counter it, number one, this is the whole point about the virgins, who have oil and don't have oil, okay? Either you're getting up to speed and you're going to be able to stand in this time, you're going to be able to understand what's going on, and you're not going to lose your moorings, okay? Otherwise, it's just going to blow you away, okay? This is the point. So we really need to educate ourselves, and we really need to, like an army's out there unpacking and undigging the ancient world, because unfortunately, like I said, we didn't come from monkeys, people. The whole thing, it's just the biggest circus. Unbelievable. The ancients never believed that for a second. They were 100% aware of the other dimensions interfacing with them. And okay, now let's go there. All right. One of the things about Kabbalah, and I study it deeply now, and one of the things about Kabbalah that has been historically said about it, it has always been a understanding that was always reserved for extremely mature believers, usually men. They had to be married, they had to have children, they had to be very grounded, they had to know Torah inside and out, because again, you're handling extremely important knowledge. Like, if you understood how to make the atom bomb, obviously, first of all, you need to have some boundaries around yourself. Let's put some boundaries around the person who has that information, and what kind of person is it? Everything's used for good or for evil. They are understanding potent secrets of how God is this whole kind of show that is running. Now let me say, I hope you're still with me here, because what I want to say is, when you read about it, you have to understand, they used words to describe the dimensions, okay, that we're not familiar with, okay? So this is what trips us up, and this is why we just make stuff up. And it took me a long time. One of the main words that I always was, and this is in all cultures, see, to a lot of these things, this knowledge, this understanding, you will find is in many, in quote-unquote mythologies of ancient cultures, not just the Hebrews, okay? And this level of divination or sorcery, this is the whole point of Pharaoh, or Aaron and Moses in Pharaoh's court with his sorcerers, and just even what we get in the text on a very elementary level, if you believe it, they're turning rods into snakes, and they're doing very natural kind of things, okay? There is, because this is the whole thing with the Kabbalah. They have broken this thing down, and they have great understanding, okay? And it's my opinion, again, I'll just throw this out there, that most of the rest of the world's understandings comes from this Hebraic understanding, or let me put it this way, the bloodline of the righteous high priest remnant, which starts with Adam, since we were going through to Seth, to Enoch, to Noah, to Shem, to Abraham. And finally, when you get to Moses, he didn't make it up, and it isn't like God, these things, God's just doing a whole new thing now with a nation. I have said that before. Okay. But there's always this 4, earth, air, wind, fire. Okay, the 4 elements, okay? 4, and it's in all sorts of literature. It's everywhere. It's in Ezra. It's in our Bible, believe it or not. It's in, and I could never remember, what are they talking about? When Moses is talking, God's talking to Moses in a burning bush, but the bush is not burning up, and we just what do you do with that? We think that God is really making a bush burn, literally. But out of a dimension, Moses is now involved with God, out of a dimension that is not, we're in the earth dimension, okay? We live in what's known as the plane of the earth, in a generative, a living, okay? Things are run on, we can see it. All right, let me try this analogy. When they discovered the microwave and a lot of the waves, a lot of things we know, we know now that there's this huge, let's say, spectrum of waves, light waves and sound waves. And technically, we're only wired to really normally just sort of interface and understand and see like 3% of it, I think it is, or something very tiny. We even know the dogs can hear more than we're wired to hear, and it goes out. And we're right here, let's just say, most of what we have, it's all together, okay, on this band, okay? but there's stuff going on over here, and there's stuff over here. Now, how did the ancients, okay, so when they talk about water, and in the Bible they talk about the upper waters and the lower waters, and there's just a lot of code words about water, fire, and the cherubim are angel races that are made out of fire, and there's breath, there's spirit, breath, spirit. They kind of all are in the same category. Celestial. The Bible will talk about things that are celestial and things that are terrestrial. Okay, that's a good word, because terrestrial is things on the earth. But then Paul will talk about things that are under the earth, like what's under the earth. Then they'll talk about things that are in the sea. But what we have to understand, they're not talking about your literal sea, at your seashore that you can see. One of the things that, and this is why Solomon was the wisest man, they will always tell you, the sages, if you really want to begin to understand what's going on in the other, study nature. Because nature is a microcosm. Nature is sort of, actually to us, it's like a pictorial, one big pictograph, okay? And I was out kayaking today, and I was just sort of, oh God, beautiful, just lazily, just drifting along in the water, and it's beautiful blue sky, beautiful, the grasses that are around me and the water. And it struck me, this is the whole point. These dimensions, there is the air dimension was right above me, and their birds are flying in, and there's clouds in there, and there's the sun in there. There's definitely an ecosystem to this thing. Then you go into the terrestrial, and I could see the grasses, and I was like on a little bank, and I can begin to see the verde, the growth that's on top. And then you're having the water, okay? And there's a whole world there in the water, and the little hermit crabs around, and you can see life in there. And this is, I think, I just think it's time we really got to begin to understand this, because a lot when Satan makes his move with his lying signs and wonders, we are not prepared for things to start coming at us out of other dimensions, okay? Because we live in this, world now, especially in the West, and especially our Western secular mindset, where we think if you can't taste it and touch it and see it and put it under our current microscope, it doesn't exist. It never did, and they were all crazy back then, and we got a handle on it. And it's just a rewiring of your brain. It's just basically a total lie, okay? There are many dimensions, and they are kind of all around us, interfacing, just like in nature. I could see the sky. I could watch it and see. I could look under the water. I could see. And this is what, now this is, I'm probably losing everybody at this point. What I'm trying to say is, these are words that are not talking about on the natural level. Like fire is not the fire in your fire pit. This is a word that is describing, and when you get into just, and this is what science is telling us today too. This is the whole point with, I've been through this in what they call it, physics, deep physics is, can't think of the word, matter and essences, or matter and forces. When you really study out the ancients, and they are understanding too, because they would talk about what lives in the different realms. Listen, people, even in our Christian heritage, the earliest church fathers, and last one of my tapes, I had a whole talk about this. Whether you call it an archangel, or you call it an archon, or you call it a principality, or a power, or whatever, a monad. I mean, these are words, you're really talking about the same thing in essence, okay? And the reason you know this, okay, so one of the things dealing with the celestial realm, and Paul makes mention of this in one of his verses, there are bodies there that are corporal, if you're celestial. I mean, there's a corporal body, and then there are living souls that are incorporeal. Okay, now you got to be wrap your mind around that. This is really some stuff. But I guess my point is, see, then in the earth, we are corporal, meaning we have terrestrial, we've got flesh, you can touch me, it doesn't, but I can get a whisk of a breeze to go by me, and I'm being touched by another dimension. I can't see the wind. This is the whole point. So you don't know where it comes from, you don't know where it goes, but you just absolutely know it's something going on because you can feel it. It does bring sensation to you. So these are things we have. Those 4 words are 4 huge, and they're on the Kabbalah, on the part of the Sephirot, and I'm not even going to go into that. But I guess what I want to do is start to really unpack some of these keys, some of these understandings, so that we can understand on a deeper level what's going on, and, angels, these things, and that there's a good, there are good forces, there are bad forces. There's things that are in obedience to Yahweh and not. We have some runaway viruses that are out there. This is the problem. This is the whole storyline. This is the problem. God's going to fix it. After the end of 6,000 years, all these different things. But some of these words, let me just run through a couple of these words. Okay, so mountains. I'm just going to throw out some out there that mountains. Okay. There's 7 mountains in Israel. Okay, the phrase the mountains of Israel, okay? But mountains, there's also in the Bible, kind of generic mountains. There's Mount Seir, which is not one of the 7, or there's Mount, actually, I don't have written off the top of my head the 7. But the mountains refer to the prophets, okay? I mean, it's like, again, tautology. This was a way they use. Because mountains, this is the thing. Okay, mountains are huge, large landmarks. If you're in a terrestrial realm and you're looking out in distances and you see a mountain, it's a rather large landmark. You're not going to not notice it, okay? As opposed to a bush down there, you're not going to see it. The mountains are big. You can't miss them. Kind of parts of the topography that you're in. Okay, that's why, and that's the thing, what they're trying to say with the mountains, with our prophets, okay? Abraham was and he's an archetype too. He's a pretty big mountain in the storyline. You just don't blow past him, okay? If you're going to get wisdom and knowledge and understanding, okay? You got to climb that mountain. You have to kind of understand, who is Abraham? What was his story? Okay, Noah is a mountain. Enoch is a mountain. These are our prophets. Isaiah. But basically, more the patriarchs where there were covenants, okay? Moses is a mountain. There's a covenant dealing with Moses on Mount Sinai, okay? You can't just blow past the story. You've got to kind of understand what Moses contributes and who he represents. So I made that point. A mountain is something you can't miss, okay? And there's mountains in the whole topography, okay? There's the mountains of Israel, okay? But this is the thing. There's other dimensions. Not every thing and all the dimensions right now is submitted to the mountains of Israel. They got their own mountains. That's why Jesus said, he's going to be like a stone, that he's going to chip away at that thing, and those mountains are coming down, okay? Any mountains, the high things are going to come down, okay? The low things, the less esteemed things that are going to come up. Every falsehood, every mountain out there, I don't care whether it's, Buddha, great guy that he is, he's not one of the mountains of Israel, okay? That, in the final analysis, is not going to give you the full truth that is available. Or, the isms. A lot of times there's isms out there that are mountains. And, if you say to that mountain, be cast into the sea, this is sort of ways, and this has happened in history. Great. I think of this whole, I'll tell you a mountain that came down, the Divine Right of Kings. If you lived in Europe in the Middle Ages, or in some cultures on the planet are still dealing with this one, that is a falsehood mountain. Okay, even God told Israel, you guys don't really want to have a king. It is not the best system. Okay, So the divine right of kings, that's a real mountain out there, but it's a falsehood mountain. It is not an institution. And the way it turned out in Europe, I mean, that just really, I wouldn't go into that. But that came down. Here we have a great nation today founded finally on a government that is actually set up, again, the way ancient Israel set it up, with three branches, a judicial, and you have judges, you have, like our president, that mountain came down. So sometimes, and today, secularism, people pray, these things, every falsehood will come down, and eventually everything will submit. That's just mountains. Let me do one stones, because I've always looked at stones, like, what is up with stones? What are they representing? But, this is, okay, letters, okay? Stones represent divine truth in this, and like Yahweh, he is the word. Let me just say, like, I've done some of these, like soul, okay? Let me just digress a minute. I've packed a lot about soul. Is also coded to be a fruit. It's the lamp, it's the Torah, it's the water. It is this whole, a soul, and a soul, we are made up of a soul. We have a body, we have a soul, and we have a spirit, okay? Adamic man has a spirit. Oh, this I have to go to let me get over to this point now that I did mention. Because this is what I've been trying to figure out. Is there a difference between the Adamites, genetically, this is the whole story, Adam and Eve, and their offspring, and are there other, we know there's Cain. I mean, this is another thing, hybrid. The first hybrid, again, Cain, even the Nakash, the serpent, he's not a snake. See, this is, again, he became, this is a typology, a parabole, and this is in the Old Testament, why God doesn't let you eat creeping things that are low to the ground, that they're just sort of, they're so sneaky. They're just, a lot of these things represent a lot of times how they're sneaky, kind of trying to come in undercover, and you're not going to really see it. Snakes slither through the leaves and the grass, and then boom, they're right. Okay, this is a behavior pattern that is very abhorrent to God. You're supposed to be open and upfront and have just way, okay, deception. Okay, but the two houses of Israel, let me get back to this. Okay, let me get back to this, because this is one of the major points I want to make, because I'm in a great dialogue with someone, and this is important to me, because this is something I'm really trying to figure out in dialogue with the law. We're the Lord, Yahweh. We're in the restoration of all things, meaning two houses. All Israel is going to come together in the last days, and be manifested in all the earth, and people are going to see the vine, the plant, the branch, whatever, that God planted, all Israel, and it's going to surface, and it's going to astound the nations. And people are going, wow, that's okay. But even what I said, I have to give you a lot of backdrop to unflesh that. But what's been going on, and this is my rub, because if you don't, I had to get this totally myself through the Holy Spirit by divine revelation, because it's like we have so lost who we are as Gentile Christians. We think we're something that we're really not, okay? We are the salt of the earth. I will give you that. But what that means, the whole history, I've gone through all teachings on this, and this is very important. This is like Mysteries 101. You got to get this one, and you got to get the whole idea of what happened in the garden. Those are two of the foundational mysteries that you need to build into greater understandings. But as a salt of the earth, and this is where when I keep, and I'm still trying to work it and kind of get it, what's the difference between Adamic man, which has a certain word, Adam, and I unpacked that in one of my shows, and the word ish, which is the other word the Bible uses for humankind. And is there a difference? This is the Gentiles. Why are the Gentiles different than Adam, Israel, the righteous seed? What is this, okay? So I'm still not quite ready to come out. But what I can tell you is what he means by the salt of the earth, and why a lot of this interplay with other dimensions right now has really calmed down, and it has. This is why a lot of times we just but it's going to be like come back in your face like in a heartbeat. This is the point. But because the story with Abraham and his seed and what God did with the 10 tribes, okay, when they were dispersed and they went into all the earth and they intermingled with the Gentiles, and if this is the whole fascinating history that people are unpacking and they're finding them everywhere, and it really did become seed that was scattered to all the nations and intermingled genetically and acted as a preservative, okay? And now I think we have more Adamite genetics into the whole race of humankind than at any other time. That's why it's a lot calmer today. But that's going to change. So I guess as a salt, as a preservative, it's really speaking in a genetic sense, okay? Now, Israel is a term, the house of Israel, that was given to the 10 tribes by Jacob to Joseph to Ephraim. And it's sort of, in the Bible, the code word for talking about these 10 tribes in the whole earth. We as Gentile Christians, most of us, are genetically of that pool with whatever's been mixed and mingled with us of Gentiles. This is why Paul said, Jesus said, I'm coming now in this phase right now, these 2 days, for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Once they're gathered back in, which is when the time of the Gentiles is done, when that pool has been reached, every race, nation, tribe, and tongue, and they've had a chance to come back, to hear the gospel, to understand Yashua and get into a remarried relationship with him, then we're going to go into another phase. We're going to go into now the restoration of all Israel and Judah. Okay, and this is the thing. People need to really, because a Gentile Christian, we have to really, you've just got to get this. It's absolutely beautiful and fascinating and true and a huge piece of the puzzle. But Judah, the Jews over in the land, by and large, Judah means two things. It means the tribe of Judah, one tribe, or the Jews, that group that has stayed loyal in the southern kingdom, which never lost their identity, the older brother, which today is still moving forward. Each of us has pretty much done, in one sense, what God asked us to do. The Ephraimites were supposed to go out and mingle with all of the seed of the earth. And Judah the older brother was supposed to stay in the house. Keep practicing those habits, okay? Basically, and there's so much dialogue today as people are coming to this understanding, like, how do you put this thing together? Because it's not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. We're so indifferent. Oh my gosh. But it can be done. With God, all things are possible, and he's going to do it. I mean, he said he was going to do it, so he's going to do it. So you can either be on God's side, on Yahweh's side, and work for the restoration, or you can continue like Paul did and kick against the pricks. And all I can say is I hope God, knocks you off your high horse. Okay, so these things you need to understand. And as we understand, because we got to understand now who we are as all Israel. And when I do like to say this, because when all the prophetic shit hits the fan, you're going to have to rise up. Rise up, oh man of God, do exploits. And this is where we get into some very exciting verses in Revelation, understanding now the 144,000, the two witnesses, okay, coming back, the 144,000. God has a lot of cards he's going to play. And, if you think you're one of the 144,000, what your responsibilities are going to be, what that means. These things are really beginning to be unpacked, to come out. You can have knowledge and wisdom about all this. So these are things so I guess just to recap a couple of the places I went. We need to understand that our ancients, our patriarchs, our fathers in the faith, this whole righteous seed line, starting with Adam going through, there have always been great souls, great men of God, women too. I mean, Deborah was a judge in Israel. I mean, it's not, and how, as Paul says at the end of the age, and it's my opinion, again, we're neither male nor female, we're way past all this, but we are one in Christ Jesus. It's just going to be those who are worthy of the Lamb. Okay, but we need to understand what's been happening, where we are in the prophetic time, what's coming down, and to take your place. Because I want to read you, I don't know if I can do this because I told you I don't have my glasses. Oh my gosh. All right, so this is out of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is the last Jubilee, and this is another whole piece. My husband does a lot on the Jubilee. He thinks, and the calendar is off, and this is why, to a certain extent, it will take people by surprise because, it's like you think you're in Kansas. No, you're not in Kansas. You never were in Kansas, and you think it's, 2016. No, it's not, okay? So these are going to be things that are quickly going to have to be adjusted. But this is a fascinating, I just don't know if I can see this. Okay, the heavenly deliverer is Melchizedek. Now we know that Yeshua is Melchizedek, truly, and the high priest. In heaven right now, he is there. He really is. He's officiating for us. It's a good thing, okay? Oh, this is, okay, anyways. Okay, he is identical, and this is identical with the archangel Michael, and he is also identical with Metatron. Now, one of the things people need to understand is Yeshua has been given a name that is above all names, right? Okay, so what does that mean? He is next to the Father. He sits on the right hand of the Father. All authority has been given unto him. I mean, these are verses in the New Testament we understand. He is in an exalted position. What this means is, over all the different realms and dimensions, he is the most exalted. He is the high king. That's why he's called Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and he is under the Father as the high God, okay? I mean, Yahweh the Father is the most high God. And just let me throw this out there because in Hebraic understanding, you have to understand, you got to take away gender to a certain extent because when you get into the celestial realms, this is why Yeshua said they don't marry or give in marriage in the celestial realms because it's different. Okay, so Abba, Jesus, our Father, Jesus taught us how to pray. He said, say Abba Father. Abba is a compilation of two concepts, the Abba, the male and the female attributes of God. God is originally actually an androgynous type of being. He has great compassion. He represents in his archetypology the male and the female, okay? So in Yeshua, we have a high priest, but it's so much better people get away from the lower level understanding of gender, especially when it genders lust, which is the problem we have today because we have a whole world that thinks they're in love, quote unquote, but they're really in lust. Totally different things. All right, I want you to say, because Jesus, Yeshua, when he wants to be an angel, he's Michael. Okay, when he is another dimension, as he's portrayed, he's Metrodon. Okay, in different dimensions, he is a different archetype. Okay, this is what the Bible's been trying to tell us all along. When he came as the Son of Man, he was Yeshua. He was a rabbi. Okay, in Israel at the time, and we can relate to him. He took on the form of flesh when he was here. Okay, now this is something I can't go too deep, but you have to understand that. Okay, and so now we are going to be like him as he is now. All right. So anyways, it talks here about he's identical with the archangel Michael. He is the head of the sons of heaven or the gods of justice, and is inferred to as either. See, and this is when we're going to come back. We are sons of the living God. We are now in a realm. We are up there from a place of authority that in other dimensions. This is why we can use the name of Yeshua and we can move mountains. This is what he's saying. We don't understand the power that we have, the birthright, the sonship rights, we have inherited, what we have access to in the Father. Okay, because a lot of it we're so dumbed up. We think it's just, oh my gosh. So if I'm a priest, I'm a really high up there. I mean, we so watered this thing down, and But let me say, when he comes with his righteous one, with his myriads upon myriads and myriads, this is sort of also type of the 144,000, which I actually, now I was thinking, it must include the most righteous saints of all the 6,000 years. So, Abraham will be there, and those who make the cut. I mean, that's like the highest level. That's like being the seals of God, all right? So, I mean, seriously, if you're going to, that's what our SEALs do. They're the most trained people on the planet. If you need a really Mission Impossible done or something really covert, you send in the SEALs. Well, this is what, this is sort of where we're going. We're going to totally dethrone Hasatan from his kingdom. He's a cosmocrator. He's a ruler. He is a lord over our realm. And we are going to totally take him out. Well, how's God going to do that? Okay, not by magic and through a technology, through people who understand how to use the name of Yashua and have been given authority. And these people will be anointed like Moses was, like Elijah was, like some of these great saints who do amazing things, okay? And these are like the SEALs. These are the crack troops. These are the fully trained, fully armed. And if you look at the things in there's a couple places in Revelation, I wish I had these verses ahead of me, the kind of the criterias. But to me, this is all really exciting understanding. And to understand how, this is just really frustrates me now. People, and, unbelievers make fun of the Bible, like, oh my gosh, Adam, Eve, and they're as clueless as, unfortunately, many of the both houses, Judah and Ephraim, those are code words for the two houses, are to their own history and what's really going on. And it's time this is why it says to grow up, to handle the meat of the word, to be able to rightly divide, and to be 100% holy and pure, and be in a place where Yahweh can use you. Because I guess I feel called, I'd love to be one of the sons of heaven, called. And okay, so this is sort of what I wanted to say, because I do want to get into, this is who, it's not politically correct. Let me put it that way. A lot of the Bible knowledge is not politically correct in the sense, and this is one of my things, that there truly are, okay, while there's the sons of heaven, there's 144,000 in training today, I believe this. Hasatan has a whole army. And his army, let me tell you what, isn't just made up of humanoids, Adamites, okay? He's got all sorts of things that is going to be used, which the Bible has told us about in stories, with things we think the stories, like what happened before the flood, where they re-engineered the whole creation and created all sorts of chimera and beasts and crazy things, okay, that we think are crazy, which, technology, if you know what you're doing, isn't that difficult. They're doing it today. This is where you can understand the sophistication of the dark side. Unfortunately, the dark side has a lot more. It's kind of sad. I guess you could say there's a lot more people who are knowledgeable about using the technologies for the dark side than it might seem, and let's hope it's not really, of the true Son of God, the sons of heaven, using for the crushing of Hasatan, okay? But it is going to change, and, Yah knows what he's doing, and, I'm not into the hand-wringing kind of thing. And so we're going to go into a lot more deeper stuff and understanding. But I did just want to say all that. I hope it made sense. I hope it blesses some people. Again, it's time. If you've been a Christian for 20 years, 30 years, you need to stop listening to the milk of the word. You need to believe you have the mind of Christ. You need to begin to ask to be led into all truth. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to say good night and shalom, and God bless you in Yeshua's